Hi everyone, my name is Matt. Welcome to my shop. Today is April 21st and this is my weekly shop update. So this past weekend was Easter weekend, so we spent the weekend with my parents at their place. My dad has been trying to establish a workshop there for a little while now, and he found a bandsaw on Craigslist this weekend and actually ended up purchasing it. It's a 19-inch Grizzly G0514X2. Which is a 19-inch bandsaw. It weighs about 400 pounds. My dad is working on converting some of his basement into a workshop for himself. So his main concern with acquiring tools is having them be able to get down into the basement. So it was very interesting kind of to think about the solutions of how to get large machinery into a basement, which I'm sure plenty of people have done because I know so many people have basement workshops. The funny and interesting thing about this purchase was that the gentleman that we bought the bandsaw from actually had it in his basement as well. So he gave us some pretty good pointers and tips about how to move such a large piece of equipment down some stairs and into a basement. He actually had his son use an appliance dolly to cart the bandsaw up the stairs, and surprisingly enough his son was able to do that pretty much on his own, which was pretty impressive. It just kind of goes to show that if you want to do something like this, either you need to be a really strong person, or have a friend who's really strong, or if you're like my size, get a bunch of people together because, yeah. So once we got the bandsaw out of his basement, we actually loaded it up into my truck. That was pretty straightforward. Basically, we just laid the bandsaw back down into the bed, and we kept it on the appliance dolly. Getting the bandsaw down to the basement was a little easier than we had anticipated. We had some friends come over to assist, so there were 4 of us moving the saw. But basically, it came down to, since the bandsaw was on the appliance dolly, we kept the bandsaw on its back or on its spine, and basically just had a controlled slide down the stairs. So the whole time, you weren't really carrying any of the weight; you were just preventing it from sliding down the stairs. So step by step, we went down the stairs until we reached the bottom, and then we were done. As an added precaution, we used a piece of rope tied to the axle of the appliance dolly, and at the top of the stairs we had someone basically belaying rope underneath a 4x4 that was spanned between the door frame, so that if one of us let go or something happened, at least there was still some tension on the rope that wouldn't just let it go all the way down and basically smush the person that's on the bottom pushing up against the saw, preventing it from coming down. So it was a pretty eventful weekend. My dad is a happy owner of a nice new, well, fairly new bandsaw. The saw itself was only about 8 months old, and the gentleman that sold it was looking to get rid of it just so we had more floor space, because he ended up using his 14-inch saw more often than this larger 19-inch saw. The nice thing about buying woodworking equipment off of Craigslist is you get to interact with other woodworkers typically. So it's a lot of fun to go to someone else's shop, see what their setup is, see what they're working on, see what kind of things they like to build, and you get to talk shop with someone as well as pick up a nice piece of machinery. This instance was no exception. This gentleman actually makes some pretty amazing pieces of work. He actually has his own website as well that documents his shop. I'll put a link to that in the description, but that's johnswoodshop.net. Really neat thing to check out. You can actually see the bandsaw in the shop tour picture, so that was kind of funny too. He might need to update those now. I also brought my dad my old workbench to use, so now he has a nice workbench with a couple of vices on it to use. That was my one that I had before I built this Rubo workbench about 2 months ago. And the nice thing about that is I have a little more floor space as well. So I have a little more space here in the shop where my old bench used to sit, and now it's onto its second home, its second life, and I'm sure it'll get a lot of good use over there. So I'm pretty excited. I'm really happy that my dad is getting into woodworking now. Alright, so since I wasn't around much last week because I was gone about 4 days here, I did spend some time working on my shop doors again. I got my panels built and installed. Let me show you what those look like. They actually look really awesome, and the only thing I have left to do now is put in the windows, or the frames for the windows. Alright, so here's one of the doors. You can see that it has the panels installed, and I think with the panels being in there, you really get an idea of what it's going to look like when it's all done. And yeah, wow, he's got a lot heavier now that there's those panels in there. So last week I was having some trouble deciding what arrangement I wanted to have my windows in, and I really appreciate everyone who sent in their comments and their feedback on that. What I am going to do, what I decided to do, was to do a 6-window layout, but for the horizontal divider, I'm going to add that in here so that the top set of windows are square, roughly there. I think that's going to give a pretty neat look. It's going to be a little asymmetrical. The dormer windows on the shed are square, so having square windows in the doors I think will play off nicely off of that feature and kind of tie everything together. And I really think it's going to be a neat look. It's going to give some more uniqueness to these doors. They're already plenty unique with the crazy grain and figure I have going on here, but this extra design element will make it just a little more interesting. And the thing about this arrangement is it's very subtle. If you look at the difference between the top windows and the bottom windows, it's not too offset either. It's very slight. The offset from perfectly square to perfectly divided is probably only maybe an inch or two. So it really doesn't, it's not too overdone, but again, very subtle, which is another reason why I like it. It's a very subtle design element that ties into the rest of the structure. It makes these doors look like they were custom made for that shed, which they are. So I'm really hoping that I can get those doors done this week. I'm really excited to get them built and installed, and also to make the hardware for them. The really cool thing, or the thing that motivates me the most to get these doors done, is that once I have those doors on that shed, I finally have doors on a shed. Right now it's just open and anyone can walk in there really and take whatever they want, so I don't have anything valuable or easy to take in the shed. But once I finally get those doors on there and I can lock it, I can move all of my garden equipment that's in here out into the shed, and I can get a pretty substantial amount of floor space back here in the shop. So I get my snow blower, my lawnmower, my chainsaws out of here, and I'll save 20 more square feet or whatever it is, but it's right there and it'll give me some more space. So that's all for this week. If you guys have any questions or comments about anything I talked about today or anything here in my shop, please let me know. And as always, until next week, happy woodworking.